Hello, everyone. Today we're going to have a conversation about grounded theory. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you an overview about the grounded theory approach, and then I'm going to also use the data to demonstrate how to analyze your data using grounded theory approach. But this time, I'm going to use Gemini to help to make sense of our data, right? So the Gemini is an AI tool that you can use, developed by Google. So let's get started. Okay, so I think, before I go and explain what granite theory is all about, if you want to learn more about granite theory, this book will be the best. So this book is by Dr. Shaz. To give you all the information that you need about constructivist granite theory, right? So if you want more information, this book will be the best for you. Back to the topic, granite theory approach. So think about granite theory approach is the way of collecting and analyzing your data with the main goal of developing a theory to explain something. So let's say you want to focus on burnout and you want to develop a theory to explain how people experience burnout. You can use granite theory. So whenever you want to develop a model or a theory or an explanation to help you to understand or help you to explain something that you are focusing on to your audience, granite theory approach will be the best. There are two important issues that you have to think about when you are using granite theory, right? So technically you are developing a theory, right? And you ask yourself, what is a theory? In qualitative study, it's a statement that shows relationship between themes or relationship between concepts that is used to explain a phenomenon or to describe a process, right? So in grounded theory, you are developing a theory. The label grounded means that the theory should be based on the data. It's not your own understanding or your own expertise is based on the data. You are developing a theory based on what you collected from participant or based on the data that you have. So it's data driven. So everything that you're going to do and it's data driven and it should be systematic. So these are the two concepts that you have to focus on when you are developing a theory. So let's say you have a request question. How does burnout occur? The burnout is a phenomenon, or you can see burnout as a process, right? And then you are collecting data. Let's say you focus on healthcare practitioners and then you collect data from them about burnout and then you analyze, develop themes and find out the connection between the themes. And based on that, you'll be able to come up with an explanation that is a statement that shows the connection between the team explaining the phenomenon, which is the burnout, right? So the next thing that you have to really think about is memory. It's very critical when you are using granted theory approach. You have to have a way of documenting your action, decisions, and your reflections, right? So documenting your action, decisions, and your reflections is very, very important when it comes to utilizing grounded theory approach. So let's start about memory. Memory is more about taking note of all the information that comes into mind as you are collecting and analyzing your data. And why do you have to do that? First, it helps you to be focused because you need full attention in collecting and analyzing data. Any information that comes to mind as you are doing something, you don't want to forget about it. So you have to put them aside by documenting it. And then after your activity, you can go back to the data or you can go back to what you have recorded and review and learn more about it. So it helps you to be focused, right? Because you need a full attention of interacting with the data, collecting data, so that you'll be able to develop a theory to explain a phenomenon. And also documenting can also help you to take note of your ideas and reflections that may be useful as you are going through the process. So when you are analyzing the data, many issues comes into mind, many great information comes into mind, but you don't want to stop and focus on the great information, so you want to document that. It also helps you to document your preconceived ideas and perceptions because when you are analyzing the data, as a qualitative researcher, you are an instrument. This means that all the information pass through you so that you can make sense of that data and then you document the process and then, put every information down. But then very important here is that if you don't take care, all your preconceived ideas, your biases, your perceptions, your background may impact how you make sense of the data. So, in order to prevent them from unduly influencing what the sense you are making, you have to document those. You have to set them aside. So, one example is that let's say you are working on a burnout, right? A topic about burnout among primary healthcare physicians, and then you have experienced burnout before. And that's why maybe you are interested in that topic. So it's very important for you to document all your preconceived ideas. Maybe one of your preconceived ideas is that if you are working in the health field, there's high probability that you have burnout. Maybe that's your perception. You have to put them aside. Because if you don't do that, it will cloud how you make sense of what they are presenting to you. If you have experienced burnout before, you have to put them aside. If you have some expectation about what you're going to get from the data, you have to put them aside. And so we call them bracketing, reflecting, documenting your preconceived ideas and putting them aside so that they will not have undue influence of what you are interpreting or making sense of, right? It doesn't mean that your background may not influence. It may, your background may influence, but you are making sure that you are managing those influence, right? Being aware and setting them aside. And also for memory, you can also record your decision and actions because at the end of the day, you have to show your work. If you want people to believe what you found after analyzing the data, you want to show your work. How did you identify information that are significant? How did you develop themes? How did you connect the theme to develop a theory to help you to explain a phenomenon? You have to show your work. How do you show your work? Start documenting every action and decision that you are making in your study so that you'll be able to clearly demonstrate how you come up to your conclusion so that people will believe what you found. It improves credibility if you do that. So these are the things that you have to think about when you are using a granted theory. There are about, three main stages that you have to pass through when you are analyzing your data, and I'm going to briefly talk about them. And also, if you have any question, you can put in the comment section. I'll be happy to address them for you. And also share my videos and also subscribe to my channel so that when I post any video that is useful, you'll be able to get access to that video as soon as possible. So these are the three main stages in terms of using granted theory approach. First, initial coding. Initial coding, the beginning way of making sense of your data. So imagine that you have your data, you have collected your data, you have reviewed, you have familiarized yourself with the data. So the next step is to conduct initial coding, right? And initial coding is where you go through each sentence, you go through, we call it line by line coding, go through each of the participants' information and then extract information that are significant based on your research question or based on your phenomenon that you want to explain. And then you develop a label that represents that, right? So let's say if one of the participants talks about the fact that the main reason why I'm having a lot of stress when I'm working is that I have so much to do and I don't know what to do to manage that. So that is the significant information because it talks about burnout. So what do you have to do? You develop a label. Maybe having higher workload can be a label representing the significant information. So that's initial code. You go through the data, any information that is significant, you develop a code, right? And then you can use one code more than one time, right? You can use it more than once. Let's say participants are talking about an issue, the same issue all the time. You can use a specific code to label that. So see codes as containers. If you see any information that is significant, you drop it into a specific code or a specific container. So at the end, you're going to have a lot of codes, right? Then you move on to focus coding. Focus coding is very important. So focus coding, first step is to identify all the codes that are dominant. And you may ask, what makes a code dominant, right? Or what makes a code important? Can you put in the comment section? If somebody say that I have identified a dominant code, what is the person telling you? Or how do you define a dominant code? There are two main criteria that you use to determine a dominant code. You can determine it first based on numbers. How many participants are connected to a specific code? Right? So let's say you have 10 codes and one of the codes, maybe 8 out of 10 participants are connected to that code, right? And the rest are maybe 7 out of 10 and 2 out of 10, right? So the dominant code is the one that have 8 out of the 10 participants. But not only that, you have to consider the number of statements that are connected to that code, and number of quotations, right? So all the significant information that are connected to the code, how many of them, right? So based on the number, you can determine whether the code is dominant. Not only that, a dominant code is a code that is really explaining or connected or close to the phenomenon that you are focusing on. A dominant code is a code that has so much rich information in terms of the context. A dominant code is a code that most participants have confirmed the existence of the code, right? So you have to think about all these factors to help you to come into conclusion about the dominant code. Sometimes it's a little bit subjective because sometimes I may see this code as dominant, but other person may see it as not dominant. This is where you can involve other researchers or involve a second person to help you to decide which of the codes are dominant, right? So as you can see, there are a lot of factors, so you can choose the factors that can help you to determine the dominant code. But I think the lesson here is that don't focus on only numbers. Don't focus on the number of participants connected to the codes and also number of statements or quotation connected to the codes. You also have to consider the richness of that code in terms of explaining the phenomenon. Is it very close to the phenomenon? That a participant gave very good, rich, detailed information, deep, detailed information. This is a little bit of subjective process that you have to go through. And the second, the other way is to invite another researcher to help you to decide which one is the dominant code. So after identifying dominant codes, what do you have to do? Then let's say you identify maybe 3 or 4 or 5 dominant codes. The rest of the code that are less dominant, you connect them to the dominant code, right? Another strategy is that you can do a sorting strategy, right? A sorting strategy is that like you don't have to identify the dominant code. What you're going to do is to explore the characteristics of each of the codes and then see whether you can group them into clusters or groups. So at the end, maybe you have 20 codes, and at the end of the day, you group them into maybe 5 groups, right? And then you label those groups, and then that label will be a theme. So at the end of the day, you should come up with themes that are helping you to address your research question, also helping you to explain the phenomenon. So that's all about focus code. And if you want to know more, as I said, you can read Shaman's book about granite theory. Then, now that we have about 5 or 6 or 7 themes, you move to the stage, we call it theoretical coding. This is where you explore the connection between the themes. What is the connection between the themes, right? Are they happen at the same time, which is the concurrent relationship? Is one theme happen before the other? Is it sequential? Is one theme under the other? Is it embedded relationship? You explore the relationship between the themes, and at the end of the day, you come up with a proposed model or a theory. Then you move on, you compare what you have developed to the data that you have, right? Because granted theory, you are not just developing the theory. It should be based on the data. It should be data driven. So you have to compare what you have developed to the data. Is the data confirming or supporting the theory that you have developed? So that's the process. And this one is It's a continuous process, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But these are the main three stages that you have to pass through, and every decision should be based on the data, right? So if you are in the focus coding stage and trying to connect codes and or group codes, you always have to think about, does the data support that connection, right? So it's a back and forth process. So also, I just want to emphasize, I was talking about the last stage where it's called theoretical coding. You explore relationship between themes, right? There are different types of relationships that you can explore. The one of them is called concurrent relationship. Are the themes happen at the same time? We have chronological relationship or sequential relationship. That's one theme comes and then followed by another theme. We also have divergent relationship. Are they opposite, contradicting each other? We also have a better relationship or hierarchical relationship. It's one theme under the other, right? We also have a causal relationship. It's one thing leading to the other. So these are the types of relationship that you can explore based on the themes that you have and also the data, right? So will the data support these kinds of relationship? As you are doing that, you are thinking about coming up with a theory, right? As I said, a theory is just a statement that shows relationship between themes or concept explaining the phenomenon that you are focusing on, right? So as I said, it's an iterative process, right? And these are the concepts that you also have to think about when you are thinking about the three stages that we talk about in terms of the coding. One strategy, which is called constant comparative analysis. It's constant comparative because you are comparing what you are developing with or to the data that you have. Is continuously comparing what the codes and the categories and the themes that you are developing with the data that you have, making sure that everything that you do is doing supported by the data that you have. So let's say you have grouped them into categories, right? The codes into categories. Does the data support that? Right. So, always using the existing data or new data to help you to establish the connection is very important. You can also do the same thing when you reach the theoretical coding stage where you explore relationship between themes, right? So the constant comparative analysis is so important, constantly comparing what you are doing with the data, right, to make sure that the data reflects what you are doing. Sometimes you may have to go back and interview some participant to get more information, especially when you have limited information in terms of coming up with a connection between the codes or the themes, or you want to develop a theory, but the existing data that you have, the initial data is not enough. Then you have to also, we call it theoretical sampling, going back to participants that can give you rich information and collecting that information and then using that information to compare the new data that you have with the outcome that you have developed. Another concept that you have to think about is called adaptive reasoning. It's a combination of inductive and deductive reasoning, right? So inductive means that you are moving from having a data to developing a theory. So normally in qualitative study, we follow the inductive reasoning. We collect data, analyze and develop themes, and sometimes go beyond developing themes to develop theory. Deductive means that you already have a theory or hypothesis, and then you want to collect data to test the theory and see whether the theory is true or not. This is done mostly when you are doing a quantitative study. But in granted theory, you have both approach. So combination of inductive and deductive is called adaptive. It happens because at the beginning you don't have any theory. You are going through the data, identify information that are significant during the initial coding stage. You go to focus coding, you categorize the codes and then have some themes or categories. You go to theoretical coding, you explore the connection between the themes, and then you develop a theory. But when you develop a theory, you have to go back and apply constant comparative analysis, comparing what you have proposed in terms of the theory to what is in the data. So you see that at the middle, you suggest a theory based on the initial data that you have. You go back to the data again, or you collect more data and see whether the data is confirming the theory that you have developed. If it's not confirming, can you use the data to adjust the existing theory? Can you use the data to reject the theory? Maybe the theory that you already gotten is not reflective of the data that you have. So adaptive reasoning is first developing a theory and then using new data to help you with the help of the constant comparison analysis to help you to adjust or support the theory that you have developed. Another concept is saturation. So there are two main types of saturation. I think maybe you may know the first one, which is common. The first saturation when at the data collection stage. When you're interviewing participants, as you continue to interview a lot of participants, you reach a stage where no new information is being collected, right? There's a repetitive information. You heard it several times. So because of that, you stop the interview and focus on analyzing your data. There's also another type of saturation when you are analyzing your data. As you are making sense of your data, you are comparing the theory with the new data that you have. As you are comparing, doing constant comparative analysis, right, you reach a stage where introduction of the new insight doesn't change the existing theory. All the new data is supporting the existing theory, is not changing anymore. Then you can think about the fact that you have reached saturation. So these concepts are very important as you go to the data analysis process. So the most important information here is that it's not like a straight step-by-step process when you are using granted theory approach. It's a continuous refinement of what you have developed, right? You may have to refine the initial code. You may have to refine the focus coding outcome. You may have to refine the initial themes based on the data. And sometimes you have to go back and collect data and analyze again, right? It's a continuous process. And that is very important. And that's unique about granted theory approach. And the next one that you have to think about is that there's a lot of myth about granted theory approach, but the two main ones that I want to talk about is that the first one is that some people think that when you're using granted theory, you have to develop a theory. And that is really wrong because what happened is that if you focus on that, I have to develop a theory, this means that you may be tempted to develop a theory even if you don't have substantial information from the data that support the theory because your end goal is to develop a theory although you don't have enough data, right? Sometimes what happens is that you may not have enough data to develop a theory. What do? You can stop at the focus coding stage, right? You can say that, okay, after doing the focus coding, I don't have enough data to go further and do theoretical coding, right? And that is fine. The most important is you are transparent. But if you focus on that, the aim of developing a theory, no matter what, this is where you can come up with a theory that has nothing to do with the data or you don't have enough information to support. So you can use granted theory without developing a theory. But the most important thing is to be transparent and say that maybe I reached focus coding process and I was able to develop themes, but I couldn't go further because I don't have enough data or I don't have the resources to collect more data from participants to go to the next stage, which is theoretical coding. Or sometimes you reach the theoretical coding at the initial stage, but you didn't go further to collect new data to test the theory. So you can conclude that I have a proposed or suggested model or a suggested theory that future researchers can work on and, confirm the theory. So the conclusion here is that you don't have to develop a theory if you don't have enough data to develop the theory, right? The second myth is that you have to develop one theory. You can develop multiple theory. It all depends on what the theory is explaining, right? Let's say you are focusing on two main aspects of a concept, right? One theory can explain one aspect, another theory can explain another aspect, right? So these are the two main myths, but as I said, there are a lot, but these are the two main that I want to really share with you. Also, you can also in the comment section, you can also put some of the myth there. And if you have any question, let me know, and I'll be happy to provide you my answer. And also, I provide methodological consultation. If you are interested, you can contact me. I put my email address um, in the description section there. My email address is info@drphilipedu.com. You can contact me so that we can have a discussion about your study. So that is what I have. We're going to move to the next stage where we're going to use Gemini to help us to analyze qualitative data to develop a theory. I just want you to know the possibility of using AI to make sense of your data. But I always say that you always have to have a background information. Before you use granite theory to analyze your data, an AI tool, you always have to have a background information about the granite theory. You have to know it so that you'll be able to question the system and evaluate what the system will provide to you. So this one is very important. So this is the data that I'm going to use. Imagine that you want to explore participant perception about responsible innovation. So think about responsible innovation is taking into consideration the impact of what innovation you are developing on the community, considering the needs of the stakeholders, considering the ethics, considering the intended consequence and unintended consequence about the innovation that you are developing. So that's all about the responsible innovation. So this is the purpose of the study. You can see here that I have 10 participants, right? So, and also these are their roles. They are innovators, policymakers, regulators, and also the general public. And also their profession is here, the age, gender, and also the geographical location. What I want to focus on is the first research question. I've adjusted the first research question a little bit. I want to focus on how participants conceptualize principles of responsible innovation. So what you're going to do is that we're going to develop a theory that will help us to explain the conceptualization of principle of responsible innovation. So let's go to Gemini. I'm using the paid version, the pro version of Gemini, as we can see here. So this is what I'm going to do. Make sure that you put it into the fast option, right? So fast, so you have to choose the fast because we want a quick answers to what we are going to ask. Let me open one of my interview transcripts so that you see how it looks like. So this is what the interview, one of the transcript. So you can see that this is participant P1 he's a tech entrepreneur. And then so each of the transcripts is about 4 to 5 pages. So I'm going to bring all the transcripts here. So you see that I brought all that here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, whenever you want the system to provide you rich information, you always have to provide a context. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the system a little bit of the background so that it knows what it has to do. So I tap, this is what my study is about. I put the purpose of the study and also the research question that I want to address, right? So as you can see here, I provided my research question and the purpose of the study, and I said I'm using granitory approach. You have to tell the system the approach that you are using. And also I'm telling the system, let's start with initial coding. And I ask, can you go through the data and extract all except addressing the research question? So the principle here is that you have to always give a context, right? And then tell the system what exactly you are doing and also what you want the system to do for you. So this time I want the system to go through all the transcripts and identify information that are significant. When you are done with providing information, you click on submit and the system will go through and then give you that information. Sometimes it will show here that it is, do you want deep research? And then you have to indicate no. You just want the system to go through your data and extracting all the information that are significant. So you can see that the system has gone through and data and extracted all the quotations, right? Addressing the research question. Sometimes it can give you wrong information. It can make mistakes. So you always have to check. So we're going to check whether all these are the right quotation. I think it doesn't look like it's a direct quotation. right? Maybe it's a summary. So I can say that, can you make sure all are direct quotations from the data? So let's see. So you see here that the system has provided the direct quotation from the data. And so this one is just a summary of the quotation, and also these are direct quotation. And also you have to check. So what are you going to do? You have to check and see. So one way of checking and verifying is open one of your transcript. So you see here, I've opened the P1 transcript. I'm going to search whether I can find this quotation there, just to make sure. So let me search for it. That information is here, right? So this is also assurance that the system didn't make things up, is the quotation directly from the data. So you can see that it has given you all the quotations. I don't know whether it's all the quotation. Yeah, I think it has provided me all the necessary quotation. If you are not satisfied, you can always ask the system a question. You can say that, make sure that you are extracted all relevant quotation. I can say that, make sure that you have extracted all relevant quotations. So it's a way of, making sure that the system is doing the right thing. You always have to question. You see here, the system have really given me the detailed information about a quotation from each participant. Now that we have the quotation, we can ask the system to develop codes, right? Can you develop codes addressing the research question and representing the quotations? So the system has, developed initial codes for you. So here are the quotation, direct quotation, and also initial code. Prioritizing long-term societal impact, conducting early ethical assessment, probing the misuse and mistakes, unintended consequence. So all these are related to responsible innovation. You see here, and here too, you can also review, making sure that they are addressing the research question. You always have to question, right? If you are not clear or you are not sure, question the system. So you see how the system has gone through all of them and identify information that are significant and develop codes. Now we can move on to the actual coding, or it's called focus coding, right? So the actual coding is the same thing as focus coding. So I ask, can you go ahead and conduct focus coding, identify dominant codes and grouping the less dominant code under the dominant ones, right? So this, yeah, and also you can even go further and explain what you mean by dominance, because you don't want the system to use a criteria that you are not aware about. Maybe the system will use the number of participants that are connected to a specific code, and also the number of statements that are connected to a specific code, right? It may not consider the other aspect, which is the significance of the code, right? So you can go ahead and define what you mean by dominance so that the system will know, and then the system will do that. There's information about dominant code here that I had a discussion with Gemini about that. So the system used the two criteria. So we can even copy this one. Let me copy this one and say that use this criteria to determine the dominant code. So I said use this criteria and determine the dominant code, and I copied and pasted that information here. The system can figure out how. So let's click on, and I go ahead and click on submit. Yes. So the system is using prevalence and significant. The prevalence is the number of participants that are connected to a specific code, and also the number of quotations that are connected to a specific code. And also consider this one is like a significant importance, right? Looking into the quality in terms of how the code is connected to the phenomenon that you are focusing on, or the research question that you are focusing on. So the system used the criteria to do that, and it was able to determine that this one is dominant, and this is the second dominant code. And it also provided some evidence. That's pretty good, right? And you can review and also make an adjustment if you want to make. You don't have to accept every information that the system has provided you. So the system has identified the dominant code and then group the other codes under the dominant, Right. So you can see here that these are the focus codes. All these five are the dominant code. And then in terms of showing the prevalence, showing information about why these are dominant, and then showing the core central meaning, examine the core central meaning, looking at using these three criteria in support. I like that the system has provided the reason why it is saying that these five are dominant. Perfect. Under the dominant code. So the system was able to group that. And you can even tell the system, can you create can you create a table? Can you create a table showing the dominant codes and their respective codes under them? So let's see what we're going to get. So you see that this is a dominant code, right? Which is also called a focus code. And then this is the dominant one, and also all the other codes under them, right? So, and then it has also provided participants that are linked to the specific code. That's very awesome. And you can download it. And so the next stage that we have to go is the theoretical coding. You can do selective coding depending on how you want to do, because I just want to focus on the three stages that we talk about. So this is what I'm doing now. We call it instructional prompting. Now we have moved to the stage where we want to explore the connection between the themes that we have now, the dominant code that are called themes. We have about five themes now, right? And we want the system to explore, but before that, we want the system to learn a little bit about this. So you see the one that we talk about that explore the relationship between variables, right? And before we go on, I just want to quickly mention that my book is about to be released in March. It's talk about, it's a second edition. So let me share with you right now. So this is the second edition. The first edition was so good. It helped a lot of people in terms of analyzing your qualitative data. The second edition is quite detailed because the final chapter, which is chapter 15, talks about using AI to analyze your qualitative data. So if you want to learn about how to use AI to analyze your qualitative data, this book will be very helpful for you. But even if it's not that and you want to get a basic understanding of analyzing your data, this book is going to be very helpful. You can pre-order when you go to Amazon or you go to our publisher's website, Routledge. You'll be able to get access to it and you'll be receiving it in March. So thank you for your time. And also, there's another book that is coming. This one is giving participant or giving student opportunity to share their experience about doctoral education, and you're going to learn a lot. If you're a student going through your doctoral journey, this book will be so helpful. You're going to learn a lot. So I also recommend it. You can also pre-order this one in Amazon or also our publisher. You can learn a lot, right? I have other books there that you can get access. It's going to be very helpful for you too. I'll put all the link there in my description section so that you can get access to that information. Back to my presentation. So now what we're going to do is that we're going to go back and copy. Let me see what I can find. So I'm going to copy this illustration and then I will let the system learn a little bit about it before I ask it further questions. So I wanted to learn about the connection between the teams. So now it has provided the information about a connection, right? And also it even went further to talk about how this one is relevant to granted theory analysis. That is perfect, right? So I can say that can you use what you have learned to explore connection between the five core themes, that's the dominant code. So let's see what the system is going to do. Okay, so perfect. So you see here the system has created a table for us. You have the relationship, description, and also supporting codes, code and quotation. That's perfect. That's what I need. I need the system to give us the description, right? So now contextual fit design for equity and inclusion. And then he's saying that for this team, the fifth theme is embedded component of design for equity, right? So you can see here that the system has identified embedded relationship between contextual fit and designed for equity. Right. And the system provided more information, also provided evidence in support. That is good. So your goal here is to explore and then see whether the information that it has provided you is correct, right? Especially the evidence is the evidence supporting the relationship. So you explore, and if you have further questions, you can ask the system. You can see that the system has done the connections, and then you can go tell the system. So I said, can you go ahead and develop initial theory explaining how they conceptualize principles of responsible innovation? So you can see here the system have provided initial theory. So there is a responsible innovation as a proactive ethical resilience. The initial theory suggests that conceptualizing responsible innovation is a process driven by five interacting forces, right? These forces can be grouped into two opposing yet interdependent categories, reflecting the divergent relationship identified in the data. Ethical mandate, the what and why of RI, which is responsible innovation. And the second one, practical delivery, the how and the where of responsible innovation. So you see that the system have provided the two main theory to explain. And I think this is the first one, explaining the theory and providing supporting information here. So at this stage, what you have to do is just review it, and then you can even collect more data and attach the data and let the system use the data to either support or adjust existing theory that it has provided. You can create a visual representation for you to really see how the theory looks like. There's a software that you could use. It's called Napkin.ai. So this is the website of Napkin.ai. So this one, if you want to create any visual representation, you just give the system a text and then it will create visual representation for you. This is what I use all the time. So you log in or you sign up, and then this is what you're going to see. So you click on new napkin and then click on blank napkin, and there's a blank space for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this initial theories, the two theory that the system has generated, and then I bring it here. I think the second one didn't come, so let me copy the second one too and then bring it here. So these are the two theories, right? You can just select all of them and see what the system is going to give you. So you select the text that you bring here. So I'm clicking on select here. Click on this icon and the system will go through, and you can suggest a visual representation. You can review and see whether it makes sense. So let's see the first one. This one is balancing ethic and efficiency in responsible innovation. So you see here that ethical mandate is on the left side and also practical delivery on the right side. So if this one reflects what you want to see or what is in the content, then you can choose that, right? So let's explore more. This one is also very interesting. I think I like this one. This one it gives you that, okay, there are two main theory, the one on the left and one on the right. And then in the middle is the responsible innovation and the innovation that is both ethical and feasible. So I like this one. If you like it, click on that. And it gives you more options and then you can choose from the options. Maybe let me choose this one. So this one is combine the two theories. You can do individual theory too. So you can select this one and click on this icon, and then it will create one theory for this one. You just explore the illustrations and see whether they make sense. So it is if this one reflects what you want, you can just choose and you can export it by clicking on export, and then you can download, right? You choose the options here, one of the options, and you can download. You can also make changes if you want to. You can double click on any of the words here and make the necessary change. Let's do the same thing for the second one. So I select the second one and click here. And then so we explore and see which one really reflects the components of the theory. Maybe let's choose this one just for example. So we have selected this one. So if it shows all the elements or the concept and it reflects what you want to communicate in terms of the theory, you can choose that. So This is a very good tool for you to visualize your theory. You can also use it to do your presentation if you want to. So this is what I have for you. If you can go to Napkin, you can develop the same thing that I have here. Right. So it's all about continuously interacting with the system. And at the end of the day, you're going to get a very good theory. And you see how you can systematically and ethically work with AI to help you to come up with a theory that can help you to explain the phenomenon that you have. So I think that's come up with two main theories, and then you explore and see. At this time, it looks like we have enough data. So I'm asking whether it has enough data to support these theories. And the system says, yes, I have sufficient data from provided transcript to support the proposed initial theory. And then the system provided evidence, right? Perfect. So this is what I have for you. Let me know what your thoughts are, and then I'll be happy to address all your questions for you. And also, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Bye for now.